Make sure you stick around to the end. We've got a track by Blacklight Vice, which is a bit of a stonker. So, yeah, enjoy the show. Well, today I've got Simon Bradbury. Hi, Simon.
Hello, thank you for having me.
How are you, mate? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. How about yourself?
Yeah, good, good. All good. Right, traditional first question. What do you do?
So I'm the guitar player for Blacklight Vice. We're a hard rock band from Southampton.
Cool. You've just you're doing quite well, aren't you? Actually,
Yeah. So last weekend we did our first ever headline show. That was at the Hobbit in Southampton. Dare I say that was sold out. It was absolutely rammed. There were so many people there, and what a night that was. To be fair, really enjoyed it. I got some good feedback from people. Yeah, it was a good night. I can't really say much else, to be honest.
Cool. Didn't you win a competition recently?
We did. So in January, we won the best hard rock and metal act in the RADIOWIGWAM unsigned category. If you just hang on 1 second. This lives just next to me. You probably can't see that because that's glass.
It's glass.
Black t-shirt behind me.
That's impressive.
There you go. So that was this year, first place.
That's really good.
That was really good. Yeah, me and Charlie went up to the Bedford Arms in Balham, South London. We went up there for the night, and yeah, wow, what can I say? Couldn't have gone better that night, really.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it? It's really good.
Yeah,
and deservedly so, I think, because I've known Charlie for a number of years. So, and I interviewed Charlie Robertson. I don't know, was it about a year ago?
I think it was quite a while ago. I don't know the date, but yeah, he did say it was. When I spoke to him the other day, it was probably last year, maybe even before that.
Yeah, cool. So my traditional first question is, I say what do you do, and then my next question normally is, because I'm intrigued to find out how long people have been playing if they're musicians, and what happens. So.
Oh, God, that's going to make me feel old if you ask that question.
Yeah, I know, because sometimes generally speaking, it's quite early on, isn't it? Things start to take shape.
Probably about
what happened for you?
14 or 15, I think, is when I got my first guitar. But I would probably say maybe junior school was when I first started playing instruments. Believe it or not, I played the trumpet for a little while, and it's not the tuba, but it's something similar, big where you hold it, another brass instrument. That was around that sort of time as well. I can't remember what it was called, but that's the first sort of instruments that I started playing.
Sort of like a euphonium or French horn or something.
Something like that. I literally have no idea what it was. It was a long time ago.
Well, it's interesting actually, because there's quite a few people I've interviewed who started playing brass instruments.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I don't know where it sort of came from.
Yeah.
Played in the school band for a couple of years. And then I think once I left there, went to secondary school. I didn't really follow up with it. Then a couple of years later, I would say discovered Jimi Hendrix. And then everything changes from there, to be honest.
Yeah, it does.
I think I had Voodoo Child, and I was like, right, we're gonna find out how to make that noise.
Yeah.
So yeah, 14, 15, probably nearer 15, but about that sort of age. So, dare I say it? How old am I? So I'm 34 now. So 20 years. Quite a long time I've been playing guitar now.
Yeah. It doesn't seem a long time to me, but
no, yeah, but when you think about it, so Christ, where's all that time gone? But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
So mid-teens, probably as with most people, if not a little bit late to the party.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because I didn't really start playing until I was about 14. But interestingly, and you might, because you've already said this about playing a brass instrument before, there's obviously a lot of things happen earlier than that. For me, it was like I used to there was a piano in the house, and I used to sort of dabble. I used to just be able to work melodies out off the radio. I didn't have a problem with that.
That's the one instrument I want to learn to play. That's on the cards at some point.
Yeah. Well, it's funny actually because I don't play piano.
No,
but it's one of those, because there are a number of instruments, aren't there? Once you can play an instrument, you can just go and work your way around another instrument.
Yeah, once you understand sort of, you've got a basic grasp on sort of notes, maybe maybe chords, like you say, melody, you kind of understand.
Yeah, it's all very straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah, really. You've just got to kind of work it out a little bit. It's either, you've got strings or buttons or keys or something. It's just very sort of slight modifications, maybe. But it's
do you actually write material for the band?
Yeah, so normally the way it works, someone will come in with an idea. Like Charlie comes up with lots of riffs, or some people have brought stuff in, and we just kind of work at it, to be fair. We all bring different parts in, and we've got this idea, so we'll start with that and basically just jam it and work it out. There's no real method or anything, dare I say, anything exciting that happens. It's just, we've got this idea, let's just play it and see what happens.
Yeah. The reason I was saying that is that sometimes, because I do a lot of writing, and I do a lot of teaching of songwriting, and I find that actually having an instrument that you're not particularly good at, like for me it's the piano, is a brilliant instrument to actually write from, because you don't sort of go down the riff rabbit hole. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're trying to find something.
Yeah. It's really difficult if you're a good player not to keep things simple, and playing an instrument like, for me, the piano would be just like, very simple chords, because as I say, I don't play, although I could work my way around it. But I find that's quite interesting, having that sort of like almost a primitive approach to an instrument, to keep things simple. And I've mentioned this story before on the podcast, but you mentioned Jimi Hendrix. Hendrix had a guitar in his house. Obviously after he died, they found this guitar that was strung right-handed. And obviously Hendrix could play upside down anyway, so it didn't make any odds to him, because there's things of him going into clubs and then getting somebody's guitar and just playing, But this guitar was strung right-handed, but it was obviously played. He played it right-handed.
Interesting. So not what you'd expect from him, really.
Well, actually, it is something. Well, the reason I'm saying that is because I reckon that's what he was songwriting in. Oh. So, because if you sit down and it's all, and it makes you play the basics, the basic structure of a piece of music, then that's a brilliant idea. And I can imagine that Hendrix would, because he was a bloody clever guy, and I think he would have thought that would have been a good thing to do.
Like you say, if it's you get the basics down and you build from there.
That's
we've
right.
done
So
that in a couple of our songs. Yeah, we've got some root notes for what we play, and then it's almost, you kind of want to fill in the gaps, whether you do just like a quick hammer on type sort of thing, just to slide into the next one. But that sounds definitely like a good way to approach that sort of concept.
Well, it's the sort of thing I can imagine Hendrix would have done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could play guitar strung left-handed.
No, but
I would struggle with that.
From the point of view of just getting some basic chords where you really got to keep it simple, it's a clever idea. So when you started then playing guitar, let's go back to that.
Let's go way back.
Yeah. So you heard Voodoo Child.
I think that's pretty much the first one. Most people will probably say that, to be fair.
Yeah, so we're starting, setting the bar quite high. So what did you do? Did you just have an acoustic guitar, or what was your?
I think I had nothing at the time. And then I can't remember where it came from, but I got a second-hand Stratocaster, I believe. That was the first electric guitar I had. I never had an acoustic when I was younger. Straight in that electric.
Yeah.
And then just tried to work it out. Different notes. Never had a guitar lesson in my life.
So did you work it out by ear?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that is
not an
actually,
easy task, but yeah, sort of worked it
I think
out.
actually that's one of those things that's a real skill. Because this is again another thing that I've spoken to people about on the podcast before. But those sort of early players, myself included, before all the tab books and everything, you had to work it out by ear. It made you a different player.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you couldn't always get it right. Because because for me, you'd have to slow the vinyl down, to be able to hear ideas. And of course, there would always be something that happened that, like somebody hit a crash cymbal or something. And
yeah, you sort of miss it.
So you'd have to sort of guess what was going on there. I don't know if you can hear that scratching noise, but we've got somebody.
No, I can't.
Oh, that's all right. That's okay.
You're all right. Don't worry.
No, that's okay. That's good. It's sort of like somebody's trying to come through the scene. But yeah, I think that's really important because I've always thought that that's the thing that makes a real difference to a player when they've got a really good ear. And they've all, this is sort of a strange thing, isn't it, working things out for recordings?
Yeah, it's not an easy sort of task, especially when you first start. You have no idea about different tunings and what possibly people could be doing, effects and things like that. You just think you plug in and then it's going to sound like what you hear.
Yeah.
So I would say what I sort of learned is probably not what you hear on the recording, but a version of. So it was close enough. I was happy. It sounded like it, so I was happy with that.
Yeah, and that's definitely, if you go back to the pre tab books, it had to be that way.
Yeah, there was no other way really.
No,
I would have thought.
No, there wasn't.
No, didn't have YouTube either, anything like that. No,
that's right.
Didn't have what we've got now, like Instagram. Everyone's playing everything slowed down, and it's all on there for you nowadays.
Yeah, and the thing is, it changes the nature of what's going on with the players, doesn't it? Because if you can work something out note for note, it's sort of weirdly like sort of classical instruments, where they're taught this is the composition. But if you think about rock music, it's not really a composition because a lot of it's got a structure, but a lot of the stuff is sort of improvised around that structure. And
they've almost got like a base, haven't they? And then just do whatever they feel like at the time. Yeah,
so I think, we are sort of in danger of losing that sort of thing that makes rock music really work because of the way it's being taught them. But that's another thing.
That's another thing, yeah. Well, it's all kind of changing that way now, and a lot of things are all sort of more digital than what it used to be.
No,
I must confess, we're not in that bracket. We've got nothing digital about what we do.
No,
still playing valve heads, and I think we will do forever.
Yes.
That's what we like. That's what everyone uses. We listen to. That's what we like. So I don't see any reason to change it, to be honest.
So what would you have said? When you started playing, how quickly did it start to take shape for you with your playing? Did you have sort of a moment where suddenly things started to click for you?
Probably somewhere between this. It was kind of gradual, but I would say, if I can remember, probably somewhere sort of between like sort of 6 months to a year. You're then actually playing chords. When you can change between, you have to think about it. You know where your fingers need to go. You can play a few songs. You've got some riffs. When you're not just playing like one note and thinking, oh, well, that sounds great, and you're not sort of struggling as much, maybe. That sort of time frame, if I can remember, is when it's like, okay, well, this is actually working. I can play stuff, and I think it's very simple kind of songs that I learned. I actually learned a lot of Nirvana songs when I first started playing.
Yeah.
Not the most difficult ones to sort of learn, but bangers of songs, absolutely epic.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They are, aren't they?
Yeah, and that's it. And then
you
play it and it sounds different. Yeah, good sort of pop grunge and you can't really go wrong, to be honest. And
No, and
once you sort of
interestingly,
learn 3 or 4, it's
yeah,
we're
interestingly,
in
I think
business.
that place that Nirvana had for your sort of generation of
Mm.
players is the sort of place that the Kinks had for the '60s
Mm.
guitarists, because it had that sort of instant effect of the riffy sort of song that wasn't necessarily that complicated, but just was like it just really worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think Nirvana are such an important band of that sort of period. So okay, so you've got this, you got your guitar, you started, were you still at school at the time?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah, near the end of sort of secondary school. So I'd
okay,
still be probably about 15 at
so
this
I'm
sort of
guessing you
time.
had a band,
Yes, we did. Yeah, I did actually. Yeah.
because this is another point that I try to encourage people when I'm teaching them. If they're at school, it's the perfect place to have a band and an audience, because
Yeah,
because it actually
you've
gets
got
quite difficult, doesn't it, when you leave school and
yeah.
you
After there's not as many people around you, you kind of
no
don't sort of speak to everybody as often, and
exactly.
everyone sort of just goes their own way,
Yeah, so there is a sort of a
and you lose
networking thing.
contact. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I definitely think that's something that people don't realise how important that is. Having that um, getting a band started at school, um, when you've got a network of friends that if you play somewhere, you've immediately got a crowd.
Yeah, because they will all turn up pretty
Because it's
much.
really difficult, and this is why I was impressed when you were saying that you had such a good turnout for this gig, because it's actually very difficult to get a good
Yeah.
following,
Oh,
isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah, we would say so. We've done some gigs where we've played to basically the other bands. We did have one incident on a Tuesday night in Bournemouth, which was unfortunately it was what it was, but it was still a good night. It was with
Yeah.
friends of ours, and we still had fun. That was a few years ago, so I'd say we're now 5 years down the line from when we started the band. So it's just gradually building up a sort of a following and getting as many people as you can to come to all the shows. Not everyone can come to every single one, but when it's quite like important for us. The first headliner, like I said, I don't know if I said sorry, at the Hobbit,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
you
where
did.
we all sort of first met. That's where Blacklight Vice first met each other. That's where I first met Charlie. Um, so it's quite a big deal for us. Really coming sort of back to where the band started to do that first show. Um, and yeah, it wasn't easy to get many people, but I think we were a bit surprised how many actually did turn up. And it's always weird when you sort of look out and there's you see a lot of people wearing your t-shirts. That's always a good sign. And then when you
Yes,
hear people singing your lyrics back to you,
that is impressive. Yeah,
I have no idea what to say about that. It's quite a surreal moment, to be fair.
yeah,
Very good.
yeah. That's really good. So, tell me about how you've done this, because we spoke about Charlie, earlier, um, and I know that Charlie was really keen on getting a new band together, because Charlie had done some stuff so a few years back, and I think because he changed location, things again, it's really
Yeah,
difficult to start in a new area, building up even the connections between musicians and stuff. So
yeah.
how did that happen? How did you sort of meet up?
I don't know whether it was like join my band or one of those sorts of websites. Can't remember the exact one. But I'd had my information on there, as it were, what bands I like, what instruments I play, what I've done. The usual sort of bio, let's say, as you'd expect. And I kind of remember on there thinking you can't really message people without paying or something. So I thought,
Oh,
let me put my phone number in there. And I think if you ask him the question, I might have been the only person who done that. Um, and I think because of the bands I put on there and also the fact there was a phone number, he reached out to me. I think one day he was looking. I'm not really sure. You might have to double check with him, but it was just a simple case of liking the same sort of bands, having those sort of similar influences, and putting my mobile number on there.
Yeah. So there's an interesting thing here because again, obviously we got this because of the internet. We've got this thing that everybody seems to be really connected up. However, I've noticed that it's not quite as easy, is it? Because you were saying that a lot of these things you have to pay.
Yeah, for like premium level or
Yeah,
some sort of
exactly. Yeah,
subscription,
yeah,
and it's like, well, we just want to
yeah,
talk to
exactly.
everybody.
Whereas, of course, okay, if you put an advert in a music shop, sometimes that was a bit. You might have to pay for that, but generally you wouldn't if it was like you were looking for other band members.
Mm.
There were ways of doing that that didn't really cost much, and there was always like one port of call.
Everybody
Now,
knew where to go, so to
yeah,
speak.
exactly.
Yeah,
Now we don't see that now
no, not at
because
all.
it's so. And so, in actual fact, I think it's actually quite difficult, really meeting a lot of people, and because there isn't one focal point. Um,
Well, there's
now,
so many sort of outlets, as it were, isn't it? You
yeah,
sort of would probably turn to, in today's day and age, look at social media for
yeah,
looking at
but
anybody, and then you've got so many platforms.
instead of having like the Melody Maker, the newspaper,
Mm.
or NME, and this is where a lot of people work. You put an advert in the NME and you get a gig, you get a dep gig, and all the rest of it. And so there wasn't loads of newspapers. Okay, local newspapers if you wanted to just get a band in an area. But if you wanted to meet other musicians, that's what you did. But of course now it's like, where'd you start? It's really quite difficult. And I think this is one of the challenges for a lot of people is that networking thing. So I'm really
Yeah.
intrigued by that. But what you had to do there. And did you know the rest of the band then?
No, none of us know each other outside of the band.
Right.
I don't know if that was a conscious thing or that's just kind of how it developed, as it were. But I think we were all in a similar way when we started. We wanted to, have a band for the music, not just have, oh, let's get my mate Joe to play bass because he plays bass. It was, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Um, you know, if you can't do it, that's fine. We'll get somebody else. None of this. Oh, it'll be all right. No sort of walking on eggshells around people.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was like you will do kind of basically what you're here to do, and we're gonna have a good crack doing this, have a good laugh, enjoy ourselves.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do it, that's fine. We're all there for the music basically, and I think that is why we've got such a good chemistry and it works.
Yeah. Right. That's an interesting statement you made there about having a good chemistry.
Yeah,
So
it's just something that develops over time.
yeah.
We all want to play our instruments. We all like the same sort of music. We don't
Yeah.
all like the same bands, but we like quite a lot of the same, which does help. But yeah, we're there for the music. We all want to be in a band and play our instruments,
Yeah.
and I
So one
think
of the
that is the key.
the thing about the chemistry thing is that is you can't really logically get the chemistry right, can you? It's one of these things you get
It's either
people.
there or it isn't, pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And I've often pondered this. I don't know if you've had any experiences where you've played along with people where you just have one person in the band that just actually, although they might be really nice, it just somehow doesn't make it work. Have you had that?
Yeah, there's been some
Yeah.
experiences. I will definitely say, yeah, we've had
Yeah,
some.
exactly. So it's a weird one because you couldn't have seen it. So when those things develop, when you get a band and everybody is absolutely in the zone with you,
Mm.
nobody's decided to do that. Nobody's, you know what I mean? It's
No,
almost
yeah,
by
it just happens,
happenstance.
doesn't it? Yeah.
It does. It does. And I've been in. Well, there was one band that I was in, and on paper it was amazing.
Mm.
Right on paper, we had a great drummer who worked with remnants of Uriah Heep. Right, we had
Nice.
uh, we had a bass player who'd gig with just about everybody, So, he'd work with loads of old blues players and all the rest of it. We had a guitarist who'd worked with Susie Quattro,
Very nice.
along with a load of other people, and a harmonica player who's he had connections with bands like The Damned, but the rock band Tank. But he'd also been a road manager for Motorhead, and this guy was like, he was absolutely amazing. So on paper, it was brilliant,
Should have worked.
but it didn't work.
No,
It didn't
maybe
work, and
there's
everybody
too
was
much, isn't there?
really nice, but it just didn't work.
It's like they say, isn't it? Sometimes you've got to get the right people. You might not have the best person at the instrument, but if you were
In fact,
to,
I think that
go
is
on
the thing.
tour, etc., isn't it? You've got to be able to hang out with these people, enjoy
Oh
their
my
company.
God, that is absolutely
You've
right.
got to be able to talk to them, and if they are well, I don't know if I can swear or not, but I'll just say if they're
Well,
if they're a wanker, then you can't really be around them, can you?
No,
And
no,
then it just everyone else is not happy, so you don't want anything to do with that.
no. That's right, and it's
then
like one of those things you can't. This is why a lot of the things when I'm sort of working with kids, it's this sort of thing, sort of saying to them about a lot of this stuff is sort of instinctive, and certain things where when you get good at this sort of stuff, you just have a feeling about something, and there's no logical reason why that you should feel that, but you just have a gut feeling about something, and that is normally more accurate than the logical thing about, oh, this is the guy because this is the greatest drummer I've ever seen type of thing. Sometimes that's a nightmare.
Yeah, he might be the greatest drummer, but he could also be a twat.
Exactly.
That's the battle there, isn't it? If you can't stand to be around him, you don't want him in your band at all.
No, and if you have somebody who's an absolute diva, oh my God, that's just a nightmare.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing there, isn't it?
It is absolutely.
Yeah, you don't want anything to do with that.
No,
it's got to be nice and easy. You've got to want to do it. If not, not interested.
Exactly right. Yes, cool. So, okay, so I'm interested now how this all sort of takes shape, because your actual style of playing, right? Because your band sounds absolutely great. I've listened to some.
Oh, thank you very much.
Recordings and stuff that you've done. I mean, how quickly did that sort of really start to take shape with the stuff you were doing?
With the bands or with the music. So when we first got together 2019, I think was it 2020, the pandemic. So all come together from, I think it was October, not 2019. I'm not sure. I can't remember when the pandemic came in. So obviously there was quite a break in what we were doing. But our initial sort of 3 songs, once we'd all learned the sort of riffs, let's say, and how the songs were on the structure. Sorry, that's the word I'm thinking of. I would actually say it was fairly quick. And then we had the break where we couldn't do anything. Nobody done anything. We all know what that was like. And then when we all got back together afterwards, I would say it's been all sort of guns blazing ever since. So the sort of first 3 songs we did an initial demo of those very early on, and then let's just say a matter of sort of months, when we got back together, those they were done. They are, as you hear them now on the recordings, very quickly, let's say. I don't know about a timescale. Don't know if I can give you that. But most of the songs sort of kind of come together very quickly. I struggle with time since we all didn't do anything for 2 years, so
I know it's
really
funny you
hard
should say
for me
that.
to grasp that.
It's funny you should say that because it's almost like there's some sort of weird time distortion with this COVID thing.
Yeah,
I had I was digging through some things, and I had a sort of a single that I did in 20. I think it was in 2019. Or was it before that?
exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's
It
exactly right.
makes you wonder, doesn't it? You have
And
no
the
idea.
thing that struck me was it was like, God, was it? It must have been 2016 actually, or 2017. It was like, that can't be right. That was the thing that sort of struck me. But it's printed on the sleeve, and it's like, that doesn't seem right that it was so long ago that this thing. But again,
It's hard to grasp,
I
isn't it?
put that down to the fact that with the COVID thing, that it's almost like everything stopped, apart from Zoom, of course, that didn't stop. Um, that was another thing. But yeah, I think that's interesting. But did you find that made it? Because sometimes when you have to work around a problem like the fact that you couldn't get together, that in a way it's got more of a beneficial thing because you must have kept in contact with one another. And
Oh yeah, we all sort of spoke all the time. We even used to, obviously we didn't go to rehearsals, but we'd all kind of still speak. We'd all get on the phone at that sort of time and still speak to each other. We used to play games online together, so we all kept in contact all the time. And sort of to keep momentum going, we still practiced the songs we had. We worked on new riffs,
yeah, I was
new
going to say,
ideas. That's all happened. Obviously, nothing else to do. A lot of time to play guitar, sat at home. And I think a lot of those sort of times where we're sat here, ideas we came up with then are now in some of the songs that we're actually playing and have recorded since.
yeah, yeah. And I think actually that's an interesting point. So because sometimes when you have that, a forced break,
Mm.
it can actually be quite a good thing. It's not something that you would normally do out of choice.
No.
I've just started working on an album with a band that I used to play in sort of 25 years ago. Um, in fact, Charlie would know the band. And getting back together to write for this new album with them, obviously had some ideas, but they were just ideas. I had like progressions and riffs and lyrics and all that shit. But it was just, and I purposefully kept it very sort of loose. So when the other people got involved, they could have some input, and it would sort of take shape. And it was amazing because it was, even though it was a long time since certainly a long time since we'd written material together, but it was about 5 or 6 years ago, we did like a reunion gig, and we just went through the material that we'd done on albums and stuff. So we hadn't played for sort of 5 or 6 years together, and we hadn't written songs together for like 20 odd years. And as soon as we started playing, it's like we'd never.
Yeah, you
Stopped.
feel like you left rehearsal sort of last week, sort of the last time we
It
played
was
together.
amazing. It was such a weird experience. Um, and I think part of that is this sort of, this is difficult to put it into words. Well, obviously, in my point, because I've got enough distance on material that I've written years ago, I can look at that and look at it as if it's not my stuff anymore. And the things that would normally make you go, oh, I didn't like that bit there, type of thing. I could have done that better and all the rest of it. That doesn't happen. You just listen to the song, you think that's a really good song, and that's it. You're not listening to, there's nothing that makes you cringe in any way or anything like that.
No, you can't. Once what you've done before, once you've recorded it, that's it. As long as you're happy at the time, there's
That's right.
reasons there why you do what you do, isn't there? For all artists have done something. No, this is the decision we made at the time. This is what we went with.
Yeah, and it's actually easier. It's actually easier with that thing with this business of time when you've got a bit of gap. And I'm just thinking that, with this sort of forced break, you were obviously started, and you got you're sort of building up a bit of momentum, and then to have that sort of forced break probably had quite a good effect, I would have thought. Because once you got back involved, you obviously had a lot of material, didn't you?
very raring to go.
Yeah.
So so we did hit the ground sort of running. There was a lot of ideas floating around. We would record just on your phone, I guess, just something like I had this idea. We pass
Yeah.
stuff backwards and forwards all the time. But okay, that's great, bank that, we'll keep that, or send me how you played that, or maybe not that, change this, change that. But there was definitely a lot of communication with regards to certainly between myself with Charlie and different guitar ideas.
Yeah, see,
there's a lot of stuff we
it's a
haven't
really
used,
good
but
point that you're saying that this business, that because of the technology.
Yeah, it's great.
That was a really good way of that. So even though that you weren't able to physically get together to play, I think actually that's a really powerful thing. And things have gone a long way since that as well, because I mentioned obviously Zoom. I had to get all my teaching online and stuff like that. And now that's become one of the things that's a really good backup or another part of sort of stream of work. And also the fact that you can songwrite like that with people. You don't have to be in the same room with people.
Yeah.
And although that's not the best, it's actually quite good.
Well, it works. That's the thing, isn't it?
It does.
Well, you work with what you've got at the time.
You do. That's right. Cool. So tell me, okay, I know the sort of preference of guitar that Charlie's got. What do you use?
I use Les Paul as well.
So you've got two Les Pauls on stage.
Yeah, so I use a Les Paul, and I do take a Telecaster with me at certain gigs. I like to swap out for at least one of the songs. We've got one that's a little bit quieter, shall we say, Through the Silence.
Yeah.
I think it sounds better live on the Telecaster.
Yeah. So do you play in other tunings as well? Is that sort of
no? It's all drop C. It's all pretty much all down a step and then drop C. One song's in standard, but obviously a whole step down. D,
right.
D, do we call that? Sorry, never really think about it. It's just the tuning that we play in. But everything's primarily in those two tunings. It's all the same.
Right. So, because obviously there is that thing of as you say, having drop tunings for the sort of material that you're using. It's interesting because I don't play in drop tunings like that, but I play in other tunings. So I'll play in like in E, like in a like slide.
Yeah.
Other tunings and G I use a lot as well, and drop D just to for certain things. But the only thing for me, it means I have to take an assortment of guitars because
that's what we're sort of trying to avoid. Maybe like
I know
weeks,
that is
at this
that's
point.
Why I was interested. How many guitars?
Normally there's probably between 3 and 4 guitars floating around at a gig. Hopefully, when we get some sort of bigger stages, there'll be enough room to have them. If we need other guitars, it's more a space thing, and also I don't want to carry loads of stuff. We carry enough as it is, so I'll take what I need. And I like the sound I get with the Les Paul. I don't really want to change too much from that. And I only use a Telecaster because that song is clean for most of it. So it's just a bit of chorus chucked on the guitar straight into the amp. And it's just I think that Telecaster's got the really nice sound.
Yeah.
Just clean straight into the Marshall.
Yeah, they're nice guitars. In fact, there's so many nice guitars out there, to be honest, really.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't stop anywhere, does it? You could have so many guitars for whatever reason. You could have a red one, a white one, and a black one, and the same thing.
Yeah,
different.
I always think guitars are like, for men, are like shoes are for women.
Yeah, absolutely. It's probably a bit of a problem for myself. There will never be enough. As soon as you buy one, you're already thinking about the next 4.
Yes, exactly.
At least.
I'm just sort of looking around my room at the moment, and I've got 4 guitars here, and these aren't all of them. These are just the ones I'm practicing on, and there's 5 actually because there's a classical guitar in the corner as well. But yeah, and I've got, and each of them do different things at the moment. That's why I've got these here. And it's interesting this because it's funny. It's only recently that I've started um, using certain tunings a lot. You know, because sometimes I'd write a song in another tuning and that was it. But now I've started messing around with things in particular tunings, and I don't quite know how that sort of come about. So this is an interesting point here that, and you this might resonate with you actually. You when you practice and play, well, let's say play. Practice is one of these things. You know, after all these years, I don't tend to think about it like as practicing. I just think of it as playing. You know, and playing things that you haven't
Yeah,
played before, type of thing. Um, but there's a definite change over years when you play about how you practice and what you do. Um, so, I mean, for me, I'm going to put this back to you in a minute. But for me, there's certain things that I did that you sort of go, right, you know, you could almost pigeonhole yourself and go, that's what I do. This is the sort of
hmm
player I am. Right. And then gradually over time, that changes and starts to change and broaden out or whatever. And I don't, and interestingly, I don't know what it is that causes that to happen. And I've seen it with people that I
right.
teach. Well, you get somebody come along and they only play a certain style of music. That's what they want to do. And you give them, you know, a couple of years and they're playing, you know, loads and loads of different things, even though they'd said categorically, oh, I
This is
don't
what
like
I am.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like this. This is what I do. How's that happen for you? See, because you
I
mentioned
mean,
Hendrix at the beginning, right?
yeah.
So that's your sort of motivator. But what you're doing now is not Hendrix, is it? You saw me.
No, not
No.
at all. I think it just depends on maybe what you're sort of listening to at the time. Um, what you sort of play when you sort of practice. You know, if you're sat by yourself, just just noodling away. What you've listened to that day is, I would say, definitely a big influence about what you're gonna sort of start with. Let's say at least, and I mean, I'm quite fortunate myself. I've grown up in quite a musical household. I think my dad was a DJ back in the day, um, 70s, 80s, maybe. Can't quite remember. Every morning to come downstairs, mum would have the radio on. So there's always been music around, lots of parties. I quite a varied music taste. We'll listen to pretty much anything, like a lot of different things. My favorite eras are the 70s and the 80s. And I think a lot of that is from my parents. And yeah, I could listen to one thing one day and think, oh, I might learn that. Or, I don't really have a set practice.
No.
I'm going to run these scales. I don't know any scales anyway. I know the pentatonic scale, and that's probably about it, to be fair. Um, it's for me, what I listen to is what I will play. Just as an example, the other day, I think I found myself listening to T Rex. So I come home and just fiddled about with a couple of T Rex riffs, and I thought, okay, what next after this? And then it's like, oh, I listened to a bit of Whitesnake today. Well, of course, we're going to play Still of the Night, aren't we? We're going to just play the riff everybody knows from that. Um, but yeah, that's kind of how it is for me. It's whatever I've listened to that day or a couple of days before. That is what I practice. I
Mm.
just play riffs that I know. I think, oh, I didn't know this song. Let's see if we can work out how to play a little bit of this, just
Yeah.
something different. And I like to play different things that I don't think people would expect.
Yeah.
Um, if you hear something and you're like, that's quite cool, and then it might not be later on that day or that week. But I did it with what's the Dio song, Last in Line. Um, I think when I first heard, the intro, that's the sort of quiet bit. I think maybe 6 months later, I actually sat down to learn that. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember. I listened to that the other day, and well, obviously 6 months ago. I thought that bit sounded really cool. So that's what I'm going to focus on today.
Yeah, because I
Um,
think that's what you know. It's interesting you saying this because I think that sort of peripheral thing that goes on when we
mm,
listen to music and it's just on in the background.
yeah,
We think, we don't realise the extent that actually becomes part of how
I think it sits in your
we are.
subconscious somewhere,
Yes, it does.
and then
Yeah,
one day it just comes
it
out. You could be
does.
sat there and you play something. You go, oh, that sounds like whatever the song may be that you've heard whenever it was,
Yeah, yeah.
and you sort
In
of
fact,
focus on that.
I got into a technique when I had a couple of projects that I had to songwrite for, and what I would do is if I had to write in a particular genre, I would just stick that music on in the background during the day, um, and just I'm not really listening to it. It was just there,
Yeah, so you just
and then
sort of that sort
yeah,
of vibe, isn't it?
yeah, and then when I sat
Yeah,
down and picked an instrument up, that's what would come out because it's actually really difficult for it not to.
yeah. That's what's up here, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's what you know. Let's say.
yeah, yeah. And the interesting thing is, it's not a conscious thing. It's not like you sit there and think, "Oh, I'm going to do a reggae." So what was that rhythm? It's not that. It's in your head, and then you've got
It'll just come out when
it just
you
comes
play a
out.
few notes, and then all of a sudden you'll be in that rhythm, that sort of that zone, let's say, and it's
So
just
this is
there.
what I think. When you're saying about because this is what I meant about not practicing but playing.
Mm.
Because I think one of the problems with practicing is that we've got this sort of thing. As soon as we intellectualize that thing, okay, if you're doing exams, okay, whatever. But if you're playing and you're trying to create, as soon as you start to think like that, it starts to shut down the natural
Yeah, you
interest.
think too much about what you're doing. You don't just
Yeah,
you need to let the music happen.
yeah,
Dare I say it, as most people say, you just feel it, as
yeah,
it were, and then what happens happens.
exactly.
Rather than you can't control creativity.
No, no, you cannot.
You have to let it happen, and if it doesn't
Yeah,
happen on a certain day, try again the next day.
no, that's
That's how
exactly
it works.
right.
That's how it works.
Exactly, it is exactly like that. I've just written a book about creating creativity, and what I've done is looked at what people thought about stuff like that in the past. And every culture has some weird, um, how can you put it, sort of metaphysical thing. The Greeks had the muses, which were like sort of
Yeah, yeah,
crazy fairies that would ruin your life as well as make you creative. And obviously the Irish believed that it was the little people that gave you, they sort of abducted you and you came back and you had the skill of being a musician, a harpist or
yeah.
something. And you sort of think, well, there's something about this thing, really the undercurrent of that is it's not logical.
No, there is no
Don't
logic
try
to
to,
it
yeah, don't
whatsoever.
try to plan it because it's not going to work. Something, you can put yourself in an environment that might do that. And then hopefully it will start to sort of take shape. But it's also, and this is the other thing that I was sort of fascinated by, and of course, I'm sure that you would have an experience like this. When songs come together, or when an idea comes up, it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got one of our newest or yet to be sort of recorded. I almost remember quite vividly that sort of first practice when we played around with the idea. We were like, okay, this is going to be the main riff. This is what we're going to use for the verse at that particular time. And then we use the main riff again for the chorus. We'll do that a couple of times, and then we need to do something different to lead into like almost like a then into the solo part, middle, whatever part you want to call it, and then we'll figure out that at the end. So we had no idea where we were going to go, but we started with what we had, and we got, I don't know, 40 seconds in, let's say, and that was where we were done. But almost at that point, we got that everybody sort of stopped, but we carried on with the riff. And then everyone's like, yeah, that sounds really good. So we did that a couple of times. Then everybody came back in again and we carried on what we did. And then they stopped again. But we also carried on playing that riff. We thought, okay, this sounds good. Now we're going to do this. And when we got to the end of that, someone shouted, let's do that again. So we doubled that part. And before we knew it, we'd had the whole song.
Yeah.
So it literally came out of nowhere because somebody kept playing and there it was. And that song now sounds, we kept all the riffs in that we had. If you come and see us, that song sounds exactly like it did that first time we ran it through.
Yeah.
So it was that spontaneity, that creativity. No one thought about it.
No.
Just kept playing the riff, and it led to the song.
This is why when you hear people like, say that songs already exist, they're just, you just have to be there for them to arrive.
Yeah, it's what happens in the moment.
And it is weird, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah. And it happens so often, whether it's like lyrics that somebody sits down and they've just got the lyrics. It's like people can sit down and suddenly they've got a poem.
We're quite fortunate that in ourselves. Many a times we've come up with ideas, and by the end of that rehearsal, we've got a fresh song.
Yeah.
It will change over time as everything does.
Yeah.
You can't get it perfect straight away, but we've got the structure. Verse, chorus, whatever it may be, it's all done. It's all written out, as it were. We went through a bit of a stage where we had several ideas, and then for the next sort of 6 weeks or so, every time we were like, song done. Every single one churned out a new one. Yeah. So that was quite good. And then we're happy with that. And then we'll see how we go along the next sort of practices. We'll play them, see if we want to change it, try some new ideas. But it is quite amazing, like you say, when you're there, that when it strikes, it does. When the idea of the creativity all comes in together, it's not something you can plan for. It just sort of happens.
No, it's sort of magical.
You've got to be very fortunate. Yeah.
It's cool, brilliant stuff. Well, we've been talking for about an hour, so that's really cool
already.
Yeah. So what have you got coming up?
So I'm going to be very bad and say I'm no good with dates. That's why we have a calendar. But we've got another headline show.
Because you're going to put, I'll get all your show notes.
Yeah, we'll put them in. We'll put them below or something later on. We've got another headline show at the Railway Inn in Winchester coming up the next couple of months. That's going to be good. Definitely, everybody come to that if you can. We are going up to Nottingham later in the year. I think that's August. We're playing a festival up there. We're going to be supporting the American rock band Kicking Valentina. They're currently on tour at the minute, so we're going to be supporting them there along with some other great bands. The Midnight Devils. I don't think many of the other acts have been released yet, so we're going to be doing that. And then in September, those guys are coming down to Southampton. They're going to be playing at Suburbia, which is now open again, thank God. We're also going to be supporting them at that show as well.
Cool.
And we are in talks currently about recording maybe one more song this year within the next sort of few months. Cool. So that's sort of this year than anything else that comes in between.
Brilliant stuff.
So it should be a good year.
Okay, so what would be nice, because I've only just thought about this, but if you've got a track or something I could stick at the end of the podcast, that'd be really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a preference? Is there any of the songs that you'd like?
No, but I'll talk to you a bit afterwards. So when we
no worries.
So when I put this particular thing together, I can stick it at the end. That'd be good.
Yeah, cool.
All right, brilliant. All right, well, Simon, that was great, mate. Really lovely.
No, I enjoyed that. Thank you for having me.
That's all right. It was a pleasure. And so best of luck with everything, because
thank you very much.
Sounds absolutely brilliant, the band. So
this year should be very good. It's been great so far, obviously with the award, like we said, the gigs that we've done. The next few months are looking great for us.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's going to kickstart us into 25.
Good. Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Anyways, that's really great. Don't disappear.
I won't.
All right. Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Thanks.